Welcome to this exciting video on how to conducting assessments for dummies, part 3. This guide will be very helpful for first-timers or people who completed the course years ago. Please have a look at the conducting assessments for dummies, part 1 and 2 video before continue with this section. My name is David, and I'm a virtual computerized trainer of Train You Can, an accredited training network. In this video we going to look at the basic guidelines for completing assessments. I also recommend that you look at our video clips on SOCWay, NQF, credits and unit standards before watching this video. So hope you are ready, and let us continue to the last video in assessment processes for dummies. Process 3, conducting the assessment. Here we will actually meet with the learners, such as in lower NQF levels, or receive his portfolio of evidence as in higher NQF levels. First I will check that the learners brought all the documents or evidence that I asked him to bring during the preparation meeting. Review your preparation notes to confirm everything is there and in place. Next, start by completing the instruments. Now, instruments is a fancy word used for your different types of test papers, for example, observation, written test, interview, role play, game or workplace evaluation. Once again, we need enough evidence that the assessment took place and that the learner can in fact perform that task. Say for example the moderator or the CETA look at your assessment guide 1 or 2 months later. Will there be enough evidence to convince the moderator that the assessment took place and that the learner in fact can perform the task? You might wish to include photos, attendance registered, reports, assignments, copies of documents or project hand-ins as proof that the assessment took place. Once again, don't waste time, so plan yourself carefully during this process. Also interesting is the different forms of evidence that you might need. These might be evidence of knowledge, assess the ability to recall information, written or oral examination. Evidence of applied knowledge, assess the ability to apply knowledge and demonstrate performance in the workplace. Evidence of understanding, assess the ability to understand the impact of applied knowledge in the context of the workplace. Evidence of problem solving, assess the ability to analyze a problem. This were called the types of evidence. Types of evidence is, direct evidence, evidence produced by the learner and direct observation of performance, while executing the task. Indirect evidence, evidence produced about the learner, either from another source or by the learner him or herself. Supplementary evidence, refers to past achievements of what the learner is capable of doing. Confused? Don't worry, it's actually very easy. Forms of evidence is the evidence you want to collect, or could collect from the learner. This might be evidence of knowledge, applied knowledge, understanding, or problem solving. Types of evidence is how you check if you have enough evidence for the assessment guide. For example, OBE is based on 30% theory and 70% practical learning. This also means that we want to see 30% theoretical evidence such as indirect and supplementary evidence. The 70% practical evidence can only be direct evidence. Let's look at another example. We said that we need 70% or 2/3 of our evidence to be direct. This also means that 70% of our instruments used must be direct, such as observation, role play, written test or project hand-ins. Once again, we need enough proof that the learner is able to perform that task him or herself. Also very important when working with instruments. You can only find a person competent at the end of the assessment process, not for every question or instrument. Any assessor who write competent or AC at the end of each question or at the end of each instruments is clearly not competent himself. Please have a look at my example on the screen. We rather use the terms meet requirements or did not meet the requirements for each question or instruction. This you can even indicate with a correction mark, or AX. You as the assessor will complete each instrument, and at the end of each document indicate again if the learner overall met all the requirements or not. Don't use competent or not yet competent. Process 4, the assessment judgment step. Again, before you can even think of making your judgment, Do we first need to make sure that we have all the documents in place and that all the instruments was completed? Any judgment sheet will start with a summary of the different instruments and summaries of the outcomes. So before you can even think of making your judgment, make sure that you have all the results. The judgment is the final decision, and the only place in the assessment guide where you can declare a person competent or not yet competent. What is the criteria again for finding someone competent or not yet competent? Ask yourself if the person can without doubt perform the function. Remember our example of Zanili in our Part 1 video. Step 5. Providing feedback to the learner. This process might include feedback to the learner, feedback to the training provider, to the employer or the supervisor. Most of the learners who complete appeal cases against assessment decision claim that they were never notified of the assessment outcome. Again, make sure that you have proof that the learner received feedback in writing. Feedback should also be provided in a professional manner, by emphasizing on the strengths and weaknesses of the assessment process. In short, your feedback should be at least half a page long, or consist of at least 2 paragraphs. The final step in the assessment process, Step 6, the review process. The purpose of the assessment review is to ensure that a. The entire assessment process was completed, b. All the documents including the evidence is present, and c. Any feedback or recommendations about the assessment process is given to training provider. Moderators love this section and is normally the first thing they check when starting the moderation process. They will ask the training provider to provide feedback on the recommendation of the assessor during this process before they will even continue with the moderation. So that's it, a mouthful on completing the assessment process for dummies, and don't worry, you can always watch my video again if you're not clear on anything. Thank you for watching my video on Part 1, Conduct Assessments for Dummies. For more information, visit our training website on www.trainucan.coza. Alternatively, you can also watch more of my videos on www.youcantrain.coza. Bye, and have fun with your assessments.